Hey everybody, Eric Hayden here on YouTube. If you saw our last video, we were trying to root cuttings of Fortuniana. It's difficult, so we're using dip and grow. We're trying to mist it really frequently. We de-eyed the buds lower because I don't want any suckers down the road when I do propagation. If you want to take a cutting of a rose you already have, it's a lot easier than Fortuniana. Again, Fortuniana is kind of difficult, but let's just say you want to make a copy of this rose. It's actually pretty easy to do, and I'll show you how to do that. If you subscribe to the channel and click below, I have a much more detailed video on taking cuttings and trying to root them. This is kind of the quick and dirty one. First one, find a rose you like that you want to make a copy of that you have. Second step, find a rose that's just about past peak. Ideally, these petals are fully open, if not even falling off. You don't want to bud, you don't want to try to root a cane or stem that doesn't have a flower on it. So again, find a cane that has an old flower on it that's about to fall off. And then we're going to do something very similar. I'm looking at this, and there's certain parts of the rose that are more conducive for taking a cutting. You want at least a couple sets of leaves, so I'm going to pull this one off. And here's a segment. I have an area to root, and I have 2 sets of leaves. So I'm going to make a horizontal cut above that set of 2 leaves. So here's one. And then I move up the cane again. So again, I'm going to rip this set of leaves off. So I have a bud eye and I have a section of cane to work with. Here's 2 sets of leaves. I'll make a horizontal cut above that. So you can kind of see we're just doing segments. You want at least a couple sets of leaves and a little bit of cane because you need that to be below the soil line to root. As you work your way up, you're going to see it's a little bit more difficult, and that's why kind of putting this back together, the middle to the bottom of the cane is actually the best. Near the top, it's not quite as good. If I were in a business, I would probably still try to root that, but I'm not in a business, so I'm just going to go for the best. Pretty quickly, I dip it in a bucket of water just to keep those as moist as we can. So now I've got my couple cuttings. They're nice and moist. I'm going to look at it, and I want to start to scrape the bottom of the stem again on either side. So I'm going to scrape it a little bit on one side, and you're wounding this because this is where the roots are going to grow out. I'm not worried about removing that bud eye because this is the same rose, and I don't mind if it suckers or it becomes its own root, so it doesn't matter. Whereas on that last video, Fortuniana, I removed the bud eyes. So real quickly, I'm wounding the stem. So again, there's my segment. I keep dipping it in water just to keep it fresh. I've got 2 sets of leaves. I've got an area that's going to go into the dirt, and I've got a wound. While I've got it out, you don't need all these leaves. You could probably trim the very ends off because they will transpire and dry out. You want some leaves, but you don't need a million. In fact, I'll cup it one more time. So just a couple leaves on top is fine. We're almost done. The last step is to dip it into our rooting hormone. And if you saw our video on Fortuniana, I'm using something a little bit different this time. This is dip and grow. It's much more concentrated than the powder. And you can see there's the wound of the stem, and that is in the hormone. If it's high up on the stem, I'll just tilt this liquid. You want it in that liquid for at least 5 seconds. I saw Dr. Malcolm Matters had done some research down in Florida. Anywhere from 5 seconds to a couple minutes is fine. So you don't want to just stick it in and take it out. Give it at least 5 or 10 seconds to let that stem soak up the moisture for the rooting hormone. So quickly, I'm going to go to my greenhouse, and I'm going to stick the cutting down into the dirt. Press the dirt around it, and it is done. Before we finish up, one thing my kids have helped out with in many ways, labels. So this one have the label on it, popsicle stick, and stick that in so I know what it is. So I'll continue to repeat this process, but I've got all this room here. Why not fill it up with some cuttings? There's my Fortuniana. As I'm taking future cuttings, I'll just keep spraying these because you want to keep them as moist as possible. And again, I don't have an automatic misting system, so these Fortuniana, they may or may not take. They're real tricky. These other cuttings I take, I should have pretty good propagation on that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. We're gonna get cranking on a couple more of these. 4 to 6 weeks from now, we'll cross our fingers. We'll probably have some that took, others that did not. But I'll do some updates on this here in the coming weeks. And again, check back mid to late July. We'll cross our fingers that some of these took, and I'll have duplicates of what I already have, and hopefully some Fortuniana to propagate for the future. As always, please subscribe to the channel. I welcome your comments. I know there's a lot of videos out there on taking cuttings and rootings, even probably more in depth than what we did today. So I welcome any comments you have. Have a great day.